So it's almost time for Oil Classico. Yes, the battle of two of the richest teams, richest owned teams in the world. One team can obviously spend whatever the hell they want and go to court in the process. One is struggling to spend a penny because we are nowhere near that yet. But it's a fixture that every single Newcastle fan and every football fan looks forward to. It's Manchester City at home at St.James Park under the lights. And we're going to be talking about it on this video, Newcastle fans, so do us a favour and make sure you stick around. Welcome back to Black White Banter, Newcastle fans. God, just 1 week, as I'm recording this video on the morning of the game, 1 week ago I was in a queue to watch that wonderful performance at the stadium. Right, but that's done now. That is done now, and we are back onto the bread and butter. And the bread and butter, unfortunately, we are coming up against what I would call more the Marks and Spencer's extra special sourdough. It's Manchester City. But before we get into the match preview, Newcastle fans, do me a little favour. Drop me a little likey, Lou. Not that one. Well, I mean, that one's fine if you really want to hit that one. I don't think anyone's ever done that on one of my videos. Just helps this video go to a couple more eyes. And if you like my opinion, sounding like a stuck record on every video, drop us a little subscribe-y-dooby-doo. That might be my new word. That subscribe. I will be going to the Man City match, of course I will. There will be a match vlog coming. If you are going to the game, or you're just watching it in Shearer's Bar, or you've just done some shopping in Primark, I always speak to fans outside St. James's Park. Top of the steps of the Milburn statue, just on that corner near where I sit. I wait until the crowds die down and I get fans' opinions. So come over, have a bit of banter, and we will chat about what is hopefully a positive result. So, hasn't been a great time of things in the Premier League. It's very easy for us to forget that. Sunderland was great, winning the derby, photo on the pitch, limbs in the 6,000 Geordies in the away end. It was all fantastic. But we think back to league form against much better opposition, and I'm not going to say no disrespect to Sunderland. Full disrespect to Sunderland. They were shite. We won't get any Premier League teams bend over like they did, literally. Have your wicked way with us, lads, and take the win and go into the fourth round. That's exactly what the Sunderland game was. And my biggest concern as the days have gone on and the hype about it's died down, and I've thought about it in a little bit detail with Man City on the horizon, my only concern is that Sunderland game not papered the cracks. I'm not going to look at it that way. There is a lot of positives to come from a big win in a match like that, and I'll talk about that in a second. But I still don't think in isolation, and some people might disagree with me, that our performance against Sunderland was that good. I genuinely don't think it was. I thought we relied on the wings quite heavily in that match. Anthony Gordon was basically given the option to do what he wanted. Almiron and Trippier down the right-hand side caused them a couple of problems. But generally speaking, did we create that many chances against a Sunderland team who were absolutely god-awful and sat in? I don't think we did. Longstaff had a header in the first half. He then blazed kind of a half chance over in the first half with that first-time shot. I'm struggling. I am. I've watched the highlights back. I know I'd had a fair few beers in the stands. We would have scored if the own goal hadn't have been put in, let's face it. But then penalty, mistake by them to give the ball away from our pressing. And apart from that, their goalkeeper wasn't tested time after time after time. He wasn't. And we won the game and that didn't matter. But I'm looking at that performance going into a match that is just totally chalk and cheese. Manchester City, one of the best teams in the world. And there's still areas of concern for me. There is. And the flip side to that derby game, in my opinion, I said that if there is one match in the northeast of England that can catapult a season and really give us a bit of spring, bit of bite, it's winning the derby, the feel-good factor. And we saw it on the pitch. I mean, how often are we going to see a team photo taken on the pitch? That didn't even happen when we beat PSG. That's what the derby means, and that's what the players soaked up and they enjoyed. And I'm sure there was a bit of a spring in the camp this week in training. That's all well and good. But we still need to get back to doing certain things in higher level matches, the highest of level matches in this case, a little bit better. And I'm still not sure whether I saw it against Sunderland. And I really hope that we come out firing at St. James's Park. Because, after that Liverpool match before the derby, Again, I thought we looked a little bit leggy. And I talked about how Bruno is getting caught out because he's not a defensive midfielder and he is getting caught out more. And them gaps between the lines against Forest, against Man City were awful. We were too easy to play against in our last 2 matches. You could maybe argue 3 with Luton away, which was a bad result. But we were getting exploited. And Man City will absolutely murder us. And I mean murder us, with Phil Foden cutting in from the left, De Bruyne back, which we'll touch on in a second. The players who can literally cut up space that we give them like that, and on you go. And that's a really area of concern for me. That's a worry. And I think the reason that's happening time after time is because we have not had the energy levels to play the way Eddie Howe wants to play. Almiron not pressing as hard. Gordon not pressing as hard. Longstaff not looking as at the races as what he has in previous months, last season, if you want to compare him to last season. And that is how we play, and that is where Bruno is not relied on as much in a defensive holding midfield role, and that's why we're getting exposed between them lines, because that back four's not got the protection of our press and our intensity that is. You know, you can say what you want about the way Newcastle play. It's a huge foundation. Eddie Howe might not like it because he might think we're more than that, and we are. But without that, our game plan drops off very quickly, and Nottingham Forest found that out with 1 pass every time. Liverpool, Jesus Christ, we were way too easy to play against them in between that midfield and defence for them. So that's a big area of concern going in. But that being said, we are back to playing 1 game a week. We have had a full week on the training ground to have a couple of days off, maybe a couple of trips to the Metro Centre, January sales, bit of chill, bit of time with the family, and then maybe 3 or 4 days on the training ground to really rein in on how we can beat Manchester City. And I think that's going to be a huge factor in the second half of the season. Forget about the injuries for a second. Forget about January transfer window and all that. I think we will become harder to beat again, and we will see that foundation of what's made us so good come more and more back into play after this bad run, now that we are only playing 1 game a week and that fixture congestion drops off. I'm not saying it's the answer to all problems. I'm just saying the way we play is very unique in the Premier League, and we might see an improvement. And I do think we'll see one against Manchester City. I do. And on the opposition, yes, there is only one way to beat Manchester City, and that is by playing absolutely everything on form. Goalkeeper's got to have a good game, Mr. Dubravka. Defence has to be safe as houses. Botman needs to step up a little bit more. I thought he looks like a player coming back from injury, in my opinion, against Liverpool and Nottingham Forest. He did. Needs to step up. Midfield need to be on it. We need to mark the spaces. We need to mark players. We need to be aggressive. Manchester City in the Carabao Cup, when we beat them 1-0, proved to me they do not like aggression. We were up for it that night. We were. Second half, they had all of the ball in the first half. It wasn't a pretty watch. We camped in a little bit. But second half, we came out all guns blazing, and they really struggled to cope with us. And that is what this Newcastle team can do. It's St. James Park, and do not forget that. But you've got to be on it. And chances at the other end need to be taken. If Isak gets 2, he has to score at least 1. Anthony Gordon needs to get at his full back at every opportunity. Kieran Trippier's balls into the box need to be very, very good. Set pieces need to be good. I sound like I'm talking about basics, but to beat one of the best teams in the world, every basic has to be done at the highest level of basic, in my opinion. And we've got to be on it. And we'll probably be able to tell in the first 10 minutes whether we are. Do you know who else has got a massive factor to playing us being on it? Me. You, if you go into the match. It's a factor. It is. It's huge. St. James's Park is not a place that players like to play when the going gets tough. And the going gets tough with this Newcastle team, if you see the recurring theme this season, by the players feeding off the fans' energy. First 10 minutes, Anthony Gordon puts in a slide tackle in the corner. Get in! It sends them up. It sends them up a notch. It really, really does. And that's going to be a massive factor if we are going to beat one of the best teams in the world. Now, team news. Oh, God. That Joe Linton news yesterday, I made a joke about it on my social media about crying, Newcastle fans crying in the car. It cut like a knife. It did. Massive loss. Massive loss. If I'd heard Longstaff was out for 6 weeks, that would have been a loss, but not as much, in my opinion. No disrespect to him. If I'd heard Miley was out, as great as the young lad has been for 6 weeks, that would not have hurt as much. Joe Linton offers us something that none of the other midfielders can when he's fit and raring to go. And in the first half against Sunderland, I thought he was pretty good. The athleticism, the aggression, the power carrying the ball up the field that only him and Joe Willock offer to this team. That's a loss, but I'm not here to cry about injuries. We've had them all season. No point crying over spilt milk, spilt Brazilian milk. We move on. But there's no sign of players coming back. I thought Eddie Howe's press conference was a little bit worrying. I'm not going to say he was down on himself, but there's something lacking from him at the moment when he talks to the press. He seems a little bit fed up, you could say. I don't know. Some of his answers, no team will loan us any players. It's not as enjoyable for me to listen to over a coffee as what it has been previous weeks, and I think he's maybe just getting to the point now he's a bit fed up. Barnes isn't any closer. Willock's not any closer. Who else did he discuss? Wilson might be back in a couple of weeks for Villa, so he's not going to be playing. We've only got one striker for this. So unfortunately for me, I think this Newcastle team picks itself. There's only one position you can really question, and that's left back. For me, Livramento is without a doubt the player who plays this match. We need to be pacey in defence, we need to be pacey in attack, and Livramento offers both. So for my team, Dubravka, Trippier, Shea, Botman, Livramento, Bruno, Longstaff, Miley, Isak, Gordon, Almiron. It picks itself. I really, really wish it didn't. And then what options do we have to come off the bench to kind of influence the game? Barely any. We don't, do we? We don't. So we've literally got to go at this Manchester City team with what we've got. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a match where Eddie Howe didn't make any substitutions. And I know that's awful on some of the other players to say, but what's he going to do? Bring Dan Burn on and play Livramento a bit further up the field? I don't see what... Same with Trippier. Bring Kraft on and play Trippier a bit further up the field. I don't see what other options he has in the tank to bring on. So we are up against the wall again. We don't have midfield options now that Joe Linton's out. We've got to be on our game. We can hurt Manchester City. We've proved that. Aggressive. Key, holding the ball. You do not let Man City come in your own backyard and have all of the ball. Manchester City's results more recently, before they've won the last three, they'd only won 1 in 6, I believe. They are beatable. They are. We've only beat them once in 2019 when Richie scored that penalty, and I remember it like it was yesterday because it was on my birthday and I was absolutely mortal, and it was an amazing night. And we could have one of them under the lights at St. James's Park. I'm going to keep stats for my match vlog. I don't know why. I quite enjoy doing them outside St. James's Park on the day of the game. So I'm not gonna chuck any black and white banter stats out on this video. I'm just going to dive straight into my predictions. Look, I'm a very optimistic football fan. We can beat anyone at St. James's Park, and Newcastle fans, do not forget that. We've turned over Man City in the Cup. We've turned over Arsenal. They were unbeaten at the time. We've beaten Man United comfortably. PSG, we are very, very good at home, so I do not think that this game is totally out of our reach. I don't. Pep Guardiola does not like coming up here. He speaks very highly of how he'll have to have his team very well drilled, as much as I'm saying how good the opposition is. God, I feel like Steve Bruce saying that so much. I do think it's going to be a game too far. We just don't have the options off the bench to influence things if things aren't going right, and there's always a high chance against Manchester City. They are without Erling Haaland, which is a big loss for them. But with De Bruyne back, he loves playing at St. James's Park. He's just a brilliant player. I just think it's going to be a stretch too far, but I think we'll give them a good game. I'll go for a draw. On this one, my head's saying Man City 2-0, 2-1, 3-1. My heart's saying a draw. Wouldn't that be nice? We've got another big game in Aston Villa, but after this we have a break, and then players will know that and they'll want to go out on their holidays with a positive result. Keep the faith, Newcastle fans. Please, if you go into the match, try and make some noise. Get behind the lads. The first 20 minutes in these matches are really, really important. And let me know your predictions down in the comments. I'd say let me know your team. All that'll be is whether you play Burn or Livramento. That's the only change there, really, let's face it. So let us know. Newcastle fans, if you are around the stadium, remember, top of the Gallagher steps, just above the Milburn statue. I'll be speaking to fans after the game once the crowds die down. Check out my match vlog. That'll be coming up in the next 24 hours. And fingers crossed we are toasting a lovely little victory to catapult our New Year following that derby win. Bring it on, Newcastle fans. Away to that!